Hello and welcome to this breakout session for the Customer Day 2014. In this session we will be looking at how to market your products with SolidWorks. So first off, what type of files can we use from SolidWorks products for marketing purposes? Well, really there's all sorts. You can use your technical drawings that you create, you can use e-drawings, you can use PDFs. But we're actually going to focus on three file types in this instance. Images, video, and interactive content. So which SolidWorks products can I use for my marketing images? Well, arguably the majority of the products that are on offer can be used to create marketing material. Perhaps with the exception of maybe data management and inspection tools. In this presentation though, we'll be concentrating on SolidWorks Standard, SolidWorks Professional and SolidWorks Composer. So, what does SolidWorks Standard do? Well, from within here we can create animations. So we'll switch to SolidWorks and we'll take a look at that now. Okay, so one of the key benefits of creating an animation in SolidWorks is that when you've actually created the assembly, you've created it with the mechanical movement in mind. And often in animations, that's what we're trying to capture, the mechanical movement. So if we have a look at this assembly here, you can see that it's been created with the real movement that it would have in real life. And if we want to capture that within a motion study, like I say, it's very easy. We turn on our motion study tool down the bottom, and here we have a timeline. And within the timeline, we can basically create keys. And the keys indicate changes in either the component's position, its visibility, its display. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate that motor wheel around, or rotate the wheel around with the motor. So I'll just go into my motors tool here. We'll have a rotary motor. We'll rotate around that axis there, and we'll have it at around about 50 RPM. Press OK. As soon as we do that, you can see in our tree our motor is created. We see a block of a line here indicating that something's happening at that point. And if we just calculate that, you can see the motor moving. Okay, now also during this process we might want to include an exploded view. Now this is another benefit to using SolidWorks, because often you would have used an exploded view for a drawing, so therefore the exploded view is already going to be created ready for you to use. So we'll just move our timer along to 6 seconds and we'll launch the animation wizard and we'll just toggle on explode, and we'll have it start at 6 seconds and last a total of 3 seconds. Okay, so you can see all of those keys created there. If we just calculate that, we'll see the motor moving, then stop, then exploding. Another thing that we might want to change during this process is the orientation of the camera relative to the screen. So at 0 to 1 seconds, I don't want anything to happen. Between 1 and 3 seconds, I want to change view. So we'll just change view live on the screen. And then we'll capture that within our animation. So the black indicates a change is occurring between that time set. We'll go to 5 seconds, we'll place the key, so we've got no movement there, and then between 5 and 6 seconds we'll toggle back to an isometric. Okay, so if we have a look at that in action now, we'll just calculate it from the start. We have the orientation moving as the motor's moving. We go back to an isometric and then we explode our components. So it's really quite easy to generate your animations. Now obviously you can take it a bit more complex than that. So if I open up one that my colleague did, you can see it's pretty similar things going on there. Okay, so we'll close that down and we'll go to the next section within our slide. Okay, so what else can we do with SolidWorks Standard? Well, we can export image files as JPEGs or PNGs or TIFFs. We have something called RealView, which is available, but you must have a supported graphics card. And we also have something called ambient occlusion. Okay, so RealView I want to talk about first. So RealView effects. When you have RealView on, you get a more realistic representation of the appearance. You get environment reflections, you get visible bump surface finishes and multicolored effects. With it off, you get basic OpenGL colors and textures, standard texture mapping for texture-based appearances. So if we have a look at that, we'll see that in action in just a second. If I open up this part in its own window, at the moment we've got RealView on, and as I toggle it on and off, you can see that with it off it is slightly flatter than what it is with it on. Now if we change to, let's say, a different appearance, maybe a shiny appearance like a chrome, you'll see that if I toggle between RealView on and off with Chrome, the difference is quite drastic. And one of the reasons for that is that when we've got RealView on, we're seeing the environment reflections. So effectively there is an image that is mapped around our graphics window that we can't really see, but that's what our model is reflecting. So I can just about make out some sort of wood flooring there by the looks of it. And you'll notice that when you change the scene, the model looks really quite different because you're changing the image and the lighting around it. So if we go for something like a rooftop as an example, you can see the model is reflecting something different and therefore takes on a different look. If we go for traffic lights, this is really quite different. We basically have 3 or 4 lights in there, green, blue and red, and you can see that it looks drastically different reflecting this. I'll just change back to a plain white. Now what I actually want this to be is a cast part, so I'm just going to choose from the still menu cast stainless steel and just drop that on like so. If we zoom in there, you can see that we can see a visible bumping on the surface indicating a cast effect. And again, if we toggle RealView off, you can see it's really quite flat there. Now you can add as many appearances as you want to the file. What I'm going to do is just add a polished steel effect for all the machined areas of this, and then we'll switch back to the main model. Okay, so that's actually looking pretty good there. We're pretty much ready to save this out, but before we do, I just want to talk about ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion can be toggled on and off from this menu here, and it just basically highlights the areas which light struggles to get to. So we'll just toggle that on. So I think immediately you get a better sense of realism when you've got that on, and it actually looks pretty decent, I think, just as it is. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to save that out and use it. Now when you come to save this out, you go File, Save As, and then you choose your image file type. So you can choose between JPEG, TIFF or PNG. And we'll go into PNG to begin with. If I go into my options, I just want to go through a couple of settings here. You've got screen capture, which is like taking a screenshot, or you've got print capture. If you want a high quality image, you'll have to go for print capture, because then these options down the bottom become available. You can determine what your DPI is and your paper size. As well as it being a PNG file, you've got the option to remove your background also, so you won't get that with JPEG because Alpha Image isn't really supported there. Okay, let's just get that back to how it was. So switching back to the PowerPoint, we're now going to look at SolidWorks Professional. Now SolidWorks Professional does everything that SolidWorks Standard does. But the key thing here is that it has a tool in it called PhotoView 360. And within PhotoView 360 we can produce photorealistic renders, photorealistic animations, we can do contour rendering, and we can do cartoon rendering. So we'll switch back to our model and we'll just toggle on PhotoView 360. Now when we come to set up a render, I've made a slide that's called 6 steps to rendering. So we just follow this through. So the first step would be to set our appearances. Now as you're creating your part, you are generally applying a material which is then giving it an appearance. You may want to refine your appearances a bit more and make adjustments to them similar to what I did earlier. The second step is to set the scene. So if we go back to the model, our appearances are pretty much done. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this cast stainless steel onto this part at the back, and then I'm going to set the scene. So you can set the scene by choosing your default scene from here. So if we go for plain white, that's looking pretty good. If I come to this tab above the feature tree called the Display Manager, we can edit our scene even further. So within here we can define where our floor is, whether we want floor reflections or not, what we want to use as a background image. We can determine how much light the scene gives off. And another thing which is quite key sometimes is the environment rotation. Because the scene is giving off light, you get sort of varying different effects when you rotate that scene around. You can also adjust your lights. You have a light section in PhotoView 360 where you can turn on lights within there, and you can also add in lights should you need to. You've got various light styles available. So my scene's set. The next step is orientation. So we can use our zoom command to get the orientation that we want, or what I tend to prefer to use is cameras. I'm just going to come in here and add a camera, and we'll just zoom out. So the screen splits into 2 sections. We set up our camera in the left hand screen, and that's the preview of what we'll see in the camera in the right hand screen. So I'm just going to change my target, so we'll look at it about there, and we'll just move our camera a little bit closer in and maybe adjust it round to the side until we get something that looks quite nice. We can also adjust the lens that's used, which adjusts the amount of perspective that we see. And we also have an option for depth of field. So with this on, if I just set my depth of field up here, let's say, you get 3 planes that show up. The more solid blue plane is the area that is completely in focus, and the other blue planes are where it starts to go out of focus, and you can change the location of that should you wish to. Now that's done, we can access that camera view, and that's our orientation done. We switch back to the PowerPoint. The next step is to preview and then refine. So if we just go to our PhotoView 360 options, we've got something called a preview window, which will come on. Just a quick tip on this: the smaller the preview window is, the quicker it will refine. If you make it the same size as the screen, then it's going to take longer to refine. Now that will just constantly refine until it gets to a certain level. Now what I would suggest here is that, yeah, take a look at it, and anything that you're not happy with, just make minor changes to it. So for instance here, I'm not happy with the amount of reflectivity on this component, so I'm just going to drag in a shinier appearance, maybe a polished steel, drop it down, and we should see in just a second the reflections increase on that component. So let's say we're happy with how that looks from the preview window. The next section is to publish that. So we export that out using PhotoView 360. We have a final render option here. Before we go into that, we'll just have a quick look at the options. So you can define the size of your image here. You can define the image type that you save out to. You can define what your render quality is. You can have bloom, and there's the options for contour and cartoon renderings there as well. And when you go to produce your final render, it will just take its time just to render that and export it out. out. We won't worry about looking at that just now. Okay, so that's SolidWorks Professional covered. And here's some images that, that I picked out, which I think are quite nice. So this is by my colleague Ed Hawkins. This is by myself. And this one is by my colleague Adam Rose. Okay, so that moves us on to SolidWorks Composer. So what can we do here? Well, we can create high resolution images. We can create vector images, which is really unique to Composer. We can't really do that in any other versions of our software. We can create really unique animations, and we can create interactive content. So again, interactive content is really unique to Composer, I would say. So before we get into Composer, I just want to open up a Word document and just show you something that could be created using SolidWorks Composer. So this is an instruction manual, and within here we have a series of images, and these images, complete with their arrows, have been generated using Composer. Now you'll look at step 6 there. That one isn't the same as the rest, it's incomplete, so that's what I'm actually going to show you, the creation of that view. So we'll just go ahead and launch Composer. And we'll open up the file. Okay, so if we look at the Views tab, we can see all the views that were created using this program, complete with their arrows. And we're going to adjust step 6. So it's really quite easy to create these views. First thing I'm going to do here is take the model, spin it around, and stick it in the corner of the graphics window. Now to remove this section here, what we need to do is first off rotate it around. Like so. And then drag it out. We then want to take this sub-assembly here and explode that out. And then I'm going to use a tool called Linear Explode to just auto-space those components. To create my arrows is a really simple process. Just going to drag an arrow on there, something like that. We'll shift it back slightly as well. So let's say about there. I also want to adjust the size of the arrow. So we'll just change the thickness there. And I want to change a few other things with it. So I'm going to get it to disappear behind the components. I'm going to have it fully opaque, and I'm going to have a gradient on there so it disappears into the background. So that's looking pretty good. I also want a circular arrow on there, so we'll just create a circular arrow, snap into the arc on there, and then just dropping it down. Okay, again I'm just going to adjust the radius of that to suit, and I'm going to have it so it loops around like so. Again I'm just going to spin it around. And position it exactly how I want it. So I'm going to make it fully opaque like so. So that's looking pretty good for my view. If I go to the render tab, I'm just going to choose the render style for this. So various ones are available for us. We can just experiment with those, but in keeping with what's there already, what I'm going to choose is a silhouette style. So that looks pretty consistent with the other views. I'll just update that view now, and then to publish that out I'll go to my high resolution image workshop, define what size I want this to be, and then save over the top of the previous one. So it's saved as a PNG, I think in this case. We'll just overwrite that and say yes to saving it. Now if we switch back to our Word document, I'm just going to edit my links to the file. I'm going to find the step 6 image, which is about up there, and I'm just going to choose to update it like so. You'll see that as I do that, the image is changed. So you do get this sort of consistency with exporting your images and having all the relevant documentation update. That's more Word functionality, to be honest. Okay, another thing that Composer is really good for is creating animations. So if we switch to animation mode, we'll just play an animation that's been partway created for us already. It's just showing a servicing procedure. Now what I'm going to do here is just complete this this procedure. So I'm going to move my timeline along to 14 seconds. I'm going to record the details about those two components at 14 seconds, and then at 14.5 seconds we'll just explode those out one at a time. So we'll go there and there. That looks pretty good. If we have a look at that, between 14 and 14.5 seconds they explode out. We can also add labels, arrows, things like that within our animation. So I'm just going to add an arrow in this instance. We'll snap it to the arc center there and just drag it out something like that. Now with this arrow, I want it to disappear behind my components. I want to show it with a gradient as well, and we'll go for fully opaque. So just set those as neutral properties, like so. Now that automatically fades in and out for us too, so that's looking pretty good. Then what I want to do is have half a second gap. I'm going to record the properties of those components at 15 seconds, and then at 15.5 seconds I'm going to fade them out like so. The section's looking pretty decent now. The last thing I want to do is just change my orientation to the model. So at 15 seconds I want to be zoomed out where I am, so I'll just create a camera key there, and then at 15.5 seconds we'll just zoom in and record that position. So if we just play the last bit of that animation, I'd say that's looking pretty good. Now I want to collapse everything, so we'll just zoom out, window around our entire animation, copy it across to about 17 seconds, and then we'll just invert it. We'll also at this stage scale it down so it's much quicker, that section. So again, if we just play the last little bit, it explodes out and then everything collapses much quicker. So there's a real ease to how we can create our animations within Composer, and like I say, they are unique because it's really easy to add arrows and labels and dimensions and all sorts to them as they're going through. Another thing that I want to look at is vector images. So if you remember, I said these were fairly unique to Composer. If we take this step 9 image here, first thing I'm going to do is stick a bill of materials on this. So for the components in view, I am going to generate BOM IDs for them, and just interesting to know here that you can reference all the metadata stored within your part. So if you've added custom properties, that sort of thing in SolidWorks, it is available to reference. We'll bring our BOM table on. I'm just going to change the way that this looks, so we'll go for a bigger font size and we'll just shrink it down a little bit to the side. I want callouts shown on here, so we'll just window around that group of components there and create callouts, and I'll have all my component callouts at the top. There are various other options within there also. Now I'm going to use a magnet line to further refine the position of those, and we'll just drag it down and sort of align it to the direction of the model. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'll then go to my technical illustration tab, and this is going to allow me to save out my vector image. And within here you have full control over line widths, how your construction edges are shown, all of that sort of thing. Now it's quite hard to know what all of these do. So what you've got here is a list of presets that you can pick from. So I'm going to start off with that one, see how it looks. Let's just go ahead and preview that. Okay, so that looks not too bad. We'll try another one. And I'll add shadows to it. And that's actually looking much better. I'm much happy with that. Now we also talked about something called interactive content. So we see an example of that here. We have a bill of materials, and you'll see that when I hover over the bill of materials, it highlights the relevant component live on the screen, and that works the other way around as well. So that's really good. If we show a more complex example of that, so we'll just open that up on the screen here, we've got the same thing going on. But we've also created hotspots within this SVG file which take us to other files that we've published out. So if I click on this, we get to a sub-assembly of that. And again, if I click on this, we get to the sub-assembly, and everything has got that interactive bill of materials on. Now you'll notice that I'm using Internet Explorer to view these, so this is something that could be hosted on your website. So if people need to order parts or just know how the assembly goes together, it's a really good way of showing them. Just going back to the animation, you can obviously save that out as an AVI file, but also you can publish it and it can be viewed using the SolidWorks Composer Player, which is a free download and install. It's actually installed automatically with SolidWorks now as well, but it's free to anyone. And the SolidWorks Composer Player will show all your views. It will show any animations. Now I'm just going to bring one up that we've published. Okay, so this is our SolidWorks Composer Player. This is just a sample file that comes with the software, but it's a pretty good one. And you can see down the left hand side we've got all our views saved. You can see down the bottom we've got an animation saved. But what the user's done here is made this even more interactive. We can rotate our model around like so and have a proper look at it. We can hide components away, we can change the render style, all of those things. But they've actually put these panels on the document, and these panels allow us to change the color and change the seat position. So it's really quite interactive, this document. We also have reference to an exploded view here that we can click on, and we can get back to our home view by clicking back. And lastly, we have an animation we can play, which is just showing a service procedure to for this chair. So similar to what we've seen before. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how you can market your products in SolidWorks. Thank you for watching.